Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's talk about AEW and let's talk about this weird Domino's Pizza story that's going around when it comes to AEW, because it's just such a... There is way more than meets the eye, shall we say, when it comes to this story. Certainly I think, anyway, when it comes to this Domino Pizza AEW story. So, Domino's Pizza, ginormous pizza conglomerate, fast food restaurant, delivery service. I mean, everyone has probably had a Domino's Pizza at some point within their life. They're ginormous. They have disavowed AEW's pizza cutting stunt that was seen during the main event of Wednesday's Fight for the Fallen edition of Dynamite on TNT. Now, the bloody match saw the Painmaker version of Chris Jericho defeat hardcore wrestler Nick Gage in a no-rules match. Now, there was a spot during the match which Gage used a pizza cutter to cut Chris Jericho's head open. Now, this is a typical Nick Gage spot. He does it pretty much in all of his matches. We don't really see it that much, must be said, on sort of national television when it comes to professional wrestling. Certainly not the main event of TNT, that kind of stuff. But right after he did this pizza cutting spot, right after this happened, just by happenstance, the split screen picture-in-picture that AEW, or TNT rather, was broadcasting was split with a Domino's Pizza commercial, which also featured an image of a pizza being sliced for delivery with a pizza cutter. So people, rightfully so, on social media said, that's hilarious. That's just happenstance. That's a funny coincidence. How wild is 2021? On one side of the screen, you have Nick Gage cutting open Chris Jericho's head with a pizza cutter, and at the same time, you've got a Domino's Pizza commercial. Isn't that hilarious? Well, it was speculated by some, and I guess rightfully so, that AEW and Domino's Pizza had worked together for this pizza cutter spot because it was so in time, in sequence, and people said, oh, maybe there was something going on there. But that's not the case. Now, Front Office Sports, and I've got a lot to say about Front Office Sports, it must be said, is reporting that Domino's Pizza was not involved in the spot, nor had any foreknowledge of that pizza cutter spot. Domino's Pizza actually issued a statement to Front Office Sports disavowing any involvement or knowledge about the promotion. They said, quote, "We share the concerns expressed about this incident and the content of this TV-14 related program and are assessing our advertising presence on it going forward." This was a quote by the Domino's Pizza spokeswoman, Jenny Fucara-Petco. It was noted that the family-friendly pizza brand might also pull its advertising schedule from AEW programming. Now, I will say about this. First of all, whatever. We've got some stories about AEW, and they warned TNT. This wasn't a case of AEW going into the business with themselves. They know what they've got. They've got a very good deal with TNT and Warner Media, Warner HBO, whatever that franchise is called at this point. Was it called Warner Media, HBO Max? I don't know. But they've got a very good deal of that, and they don't want to jeopardize that. They know that. They know that they're not going to ruin that. So way ahead of time, and this is a story in a second, they went to TNT and said, look, we're going to be doing a really violent match next week. It's a main event. It's Chris Jericho. It's Nick Gage. Here are some Nick Gage matches. This is what we're going to do. Are you okay with it? Reportedly, TNT were. So I don't think they're going to get in any trouble for that. People watching it, rightfully so, and I said it myself. I questioned it going into the main event for Fight for the Fallen this past week. I said, are TNT really fully aware of what a Nick Gage match looks like? I think AEW were, but I even asked if Chris Jericho. Is Chris Jericho really aware of what a Nick Gage match really looks like? Because this is going to be violent. This is going to be brutal. There's going to be light tubes. There's going to be pizza cutters. There's going to be glass. And there was. They went all in. They didn't shy away from anything that Nick Gage would do in any other of his matches. And I think people watching it, if they weren't really exposed to that kind of deathmatch wrestling before, were probably uncomfortable. It's certainly not for me, but I appreciate Nick Gage doing what Nick Gage does. I appreciate AEW taking the risk and all that kind of stuff. The whole Domino's thing, it was just coincidence. But this whole Front Office Sports element of it, this is where it gets weird. This is where it gets really confusing. Front Office Sports, as far as I'm aware, has only really run one other pro wrestling story, and that was talking about WWE wanting to be the new Marvel of professional wrestling, or they see themselves as like a Marvel kind of company where they're going to be making movies, television shows, merchandise. They want to be that version, and that was really directly from a quote from, I think it was like Stephanie McMahon or Triple H, or might be Nick Khan. Someone obviously briefed Front Office Sports and said, WWE wants to be Marvel, put this story out there. And the article itself is filled with, I don't know, just it doesn't feel like good journalism, I will say, because it's filled with stuff like and I actually have the quote in front of me. I was looking at this before I went live or started recording this video. This is part of the article. It says here, it says, quote, founded in 2019, AEW is trying to challenge wrestling giant WWE for fans and TV viewers, but its bloody matches have turned some fans and turned off some fans and critics, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is so far removed from the truth. I mean, AEW, have they had bloody matches? Sure they have. But none more than WWE was having back in the day in the TV-14 era. This is what AEW is. They're a TV-14 rated program. They're not having bloody matches every week. Now, sometimes when it comes to AEW fans, I'm an AEW fan myself. I'm a WWE fan. I'm a pro wrestling fan. Sometimes I go, oh, you had a violent match last week. I mentioned that when it came to this main event this week, that, you know, you kind of had a Texas death match last week. You got a bit overboard with the violence, but they're hardly doing this every week. They're hardly ECW or anything even more extreme, you know, like CZW or anything crazy like that. They're hardly that. So the idea of they're turning off fans with their bloody matches, again, that stems from a Vince McMahon quote that he did on an investor call back in 2019 when he said that AEW was a blood and guts promotion. AEW ran with that and made War Games their blood and guts, and they made an actual event out of it. So again, you have to look at these things in context. What is the other report they've done about WWE wanting to be the next Marvel kind of company? That came from WWE. That line there about AEW is trying to take viewers away and challenge WWE for viewership and money and all this kind of stuff, but they're turning off fans because of the bloody matches. It does feel like a bit of a hit piece myself. I don't even think Domino's were aware of this. I think Domino's were completely blind to it. They didn't know even the thing had happened. And then Front Office Sports does this article. They've obviously gone to Domino's and said, look, Domino's was on at the same time as someone cutting open someone's head with a pizza cutter. How has this happened? Look, aren't you annoyed? Aren't you scared about this? Aren't you worried about this? It does feel very much like a hit piece, to be honest with you. I do agree with the critics that will say that it was a risk for AEW to do it because they were always going to be running the risk of upsetting sponsors. Yes, they had told TNT, but they didn't tell every sponsor that was going to be advertising during that show. And, you know, that might upset some people. So that's the risk that you take by doing this kind of ultra-violent match. So, I don't know. The article in itself, if you read it in full, which I have, it's full of just, again, reaches. Like I said, that one about saying that, you know, they're turning off fans because of the violence and the bloody matches. AEW did over 1 million viewers once again for the third week in a row. It's their best 18 to 49 demographic of 2021 so far in competition against the Olympics. So when I see that kind of stuff, you do have to kind of roll your eyes and go, where is this coming from? What point of view is this coming from? And it feels like it comes from a point of view of trying to hurt AEW. And I'm not saying that as you're an AEW mark, I knew it, you're an AEW mark, I'm not. But I'm looking at this and you have to, dive a little bit deeper in these kind of things, which people don't tend to do at the moment when it comes to news stories, social media, and all that kind of stuff. You can't believe just exactly what you read. Read the full article. Think to yourself, where is this coming from? Make your own mind up when it comes to it. And I don't know. The Domino's story has got a lot of people's attention because, again, it's Domino's. They're a big corporate brand, and people that hate AEW are going, see, they shouldn't have had Nick Gage. They're going to lose sponsors. See, they're going to go in the mud, but sponsors don't like them. See, TNT are going to drop them, which isn't going to be the case, but it does feel like, and I mean, we might be wrong, and we'll probably never know the truth when it comes to this, but it does feel like a kind of, maybe Domino's, have a look at this. And then we put an article out there, that people on that website might read. Suddenly they go, oh, I was going to watch AEW, but it's all bloody and violent and people don't like it. You're making assumptions for people. And that's the thing there. So I don't know. It's just, will anything come from it? At the end of the day, realistically, Domino's Pizza, they're going to want to advertise their product on what people are watching. AEW, as I mentioned, they had the highest 18 to 49 demographic of the year. That's what television executives, that's what advertising executives care about. They care about what programs are people watching the most, and that key demographic, the people that actually buy the product, that will buy a Domino's Pizza. If AEW is the number one show on cable, they're going to advertise. It doesn't matter. What AEW, the Domino's are going to want to advertise on a program that nobody's watching, certainly, and nobody in that key demographic? Of course not. They're going to want to advertise which most people are watching, which is AEW on the Wednesday night. So I don't know if really anything will come from it. I think it's people that maybe have a bit of an agenda against AEW trying to push something. We'll wait and see about it. Speaking of, again, we mentioned this just a minute ago, but it's worth pointing out again. Now, on Fight for the Fallen this week, of course, Jericho passed part 2 of the 5 labors of Jericho, defeating Nick Gage in a no-rules match. On the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer radio show, Dave Meltzer, and I know people will roll their eyes, but Dave Meltzer, when he talks about AEW, is accurate because he talks to Tony Khan because they're good friends. Dave Meltzer has reported that it was Jericho's idea to do a hardcore match. However, Jericho did not name Nick Gage as the opponent, but of course, and this is what Meltzer pointed out, and it's not really a reach here, that the opponent and what happened in the match would not happen if Chris Jericho doesn't want to. He's Chris Jericho. He's probably one of, if not the highest paid guy in AEW. He's very influential behind the scenes and in front of the camera too. If Jericho doesn't want to do anything, he's not going to do it. That's just the fact. So Jericho wanted to do a hardcore match. Once Nick Gage was thrown out there, of course, Jericho knows who Nick Gage is from Jericho's work on Dark Side of the Ring and the whole pizza car and the light tube stuff. You know what? I think Jericho had a point to prove. He always has a point to prove, Chris Jericho, especially after the blood and guts thing. People mocking him and stuff for that. I no doubt in my mind he wanted to take that blood and guts thing and just shove it up people's ass. So, you took a crappy fall off the top of the structure. Well, okay, I took a light tube and a pizza cut to the head. Now what? So Jericho obviously wanted to do it. Meltzer also reported that AEW President Tony Khan spoke with TNT prior to the match, so it's unlikely that TNT would drop AEW from their network because of the match or anything like that. Khan has a very good relationship with TNT and Warner Media and all that kind of stuff. That's the reason they're on TNT right now. Tony Khan has a very, very good relationship with Warner Media as well. There obviously was some concern out there that the network or some sponsors would disapprove of the brutality of the match, but it doesn't appear that TNT has an issue at all. They were fine with promoting it. Maybe some of the sponsors like Domino's might have an issue with it, but it was noted that this is a one-time thing, this match. However, of course, if the match did good numbers, which it did, maybe that could change in the future. So time will tell. Time will tell. The numbers don't really lie this week, and we'll move on to the numbers right now because AEW, for the 3rd consecutive week, scores over 1 million viewers. They scored the 4th most viewers in AEW Dynamite history this past week. So Domino's can complain all they want, but it can't be that bad. Wednesday's live Fight for the Fallen edition of Dynamite reportedly drew 1.108 million viewers on TNT, according to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. This is down 3.5% from last week's Fight Fest Night 2 edition of Dynamite, but of course you do have strong competition this week, so the fact that Dynamite still did over 1 million viewers is still very, very good. Dynamite drew a 0.45 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic this week, which is up 2.3% from last week's 0.44 rating. Now, Fight for the Fallen, again, you can talk about being down, but Fight for the Fallen drew the fourth most viewers in AEW show history and the 3rd best of this year. It was tied with 2 other episodes for the 3rd best key demographic rating in AEW history too. Fight for the Fallen viewership was down 3.5% from last week, while the 18 to 49 demo, as I mentioned, was up 2.3%. This week, Dynamite viewership was up 43%. 43%. It's nearly up 50% from the same week in 2020. The key demographic is up 50% from the same week in 2020, which went head-to-head against NXT in the same time slot. So you can't argue with that. Again, I did a video earlier today talking about Vince McMahon and AEW's not competition and all that kind of stuff. You can't argue with that. You know, year on year, when you're up nearly 50% in viewership and you are up 50% in terms of the key demographic, you go one way, which is up right now. And when you think about that, you think about the competition of the Olympics right now, which does play into it. You've got strong competition with the Olympics. You're still doing over 1 million viewers. You're doing really strong numbers in the key 18 to 49 demographic. I don't know if they were the number 1 show on cable once again this week. Maybe not because of the Olympics. Time will only tell. But again, it's incredibly impressive. And then factor in, AEW is just getting started. You've got CM Punk coming in for a load of shows in Chicago. You've got Bryan Danielson coming in as well. It makes you wonder, how high can really AEW go right now? WWE can start saying they're not competition. We don't consider them competition. They're not like competition like WCW was or anything like that. But those numbers aren't to be sniffed at. They're really not. Because give it a year, who's to say they're not closer to Monday Night Raw? I think they will be. Whether or not they're going to be, 1.4, 1.5, or Raw's just going to be so low at that point, I don't know. But you look at Dynamite's going like that, Raw's going like that. So time will tell. But once again, it's an incredibly impressive number, and you have to give massive congratulations to everyone within AEW for, once again, a great show and a great number. Now, an interesting story here talking about Hangman Page. The general consensus was that Hangman Page was going to be facing Kenny Omega at All Out for the AEW World Championship, even though, of course, He and the Dark Order lost their 5-on-5 tag team elimination match this week on Fight for the Fallen. Obviously, the stipulation of the match was because Hangman and the Dark Order lost, Hangman could not receive an AEW World Championship opportunity, and the Dark Order could not receive a tag team championship opportunity. And it shocked a lot of people. I wasn't totally shocked because I thought they might go in a different direction, but this news certainly is shocking because reportedly this shock was by design by AEW, according to Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter this week. Hangman Page will not feature in the main event of AEW's upcoming All Out show. Meltzer says that this was always the plan, for Hangman to compete in the main event for the World Championship, but plans have since changed. Now, we don't know what plans have changed. We don't know if that's because Bryan Danielson or CM Punk's coming in. I would probably lean to that as to why plans have changed, because maybe they thought when Hangman faces Omega, he has to defeat him. Maybe we don't want to get the title off of Omega just right now because maybe we want to do Omega versus Punk. We want to do Omega versus Bryan Danielson for that World Championship. So maybe plans have changed. Now, AEW has been pushing Christian Cage for a title shot on television, and now with Hangman Page out of the picture, Christian Cage would become the de facto number one contender for the World Championship following Hangman's loss this week. But it's still unknown if that's going to be on AEW television or if that's going to be at All Out. So I don't know. That this is surprising. I felt, despite the loss this week, that always the direction that they were going to be going in was Hangman for the World Championship at All Out, with Hangman winning that world title at All Out. If it's Christian Cage, I think it's a risk. I think it's a real big risk. I think the reason I think it's a risk is, one, look, put it out of the way first, Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega is going to be a great match. There's no doubt about that, and that's a match we never thought we were going to see, last year, before Christian Cage returned to in-ring action. We never thought that would be possible. So it still is, at one point, I guess, a bit of a dream match and an exciting match, and a match, again, that I have no doubts will be very, very good. The reason I think it's a risk is because Christian Cage isn't winning that match. Christian Cage isn't going to be the AEW World Champion. So let's put that out of the way. So you already know who the winner is going to be. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be a bad match, because predictable outcomes don't necessarily make bad matches. It adds to it. So we know who's going to win that match. It's going to be Kenny Omega. I think the biggest risk is that Chicago crowd at All Out, despite people like CM Punk being on that show, maybe some other people, despite having Punk there, I think there is a risk of having that crowd turn on Christian Cage because they want Hangman Page to be the AEW World Champion so badly. They want to see Hangman Page in that spot. Hangman Page has been getting some of the biggest reactions on AEW television since they've returned to the road. The guy is super, super over. He's super popular. And you might have a case, ironically, of a bit of a Daniel Bryan on your hand, of this guy that the crowd so desperately wants to see succeed, and for whatever reason, he's not booked to win. He's not booked to win titles. He's not booked to be in the main event. And eventually, organically, the crowd kind of have enough, and they're like, no, we want to see Hangman Page win. We want to see Hangman Page be the world champion. So I think it is a risk. I do think it is a risk from AEW to not have him in that main event spot. But reportedly, plans have changed. As I mentioned, what those plans are, we don't know. My biggest assumption would be, and it's just a guesswork on my part, but my assumption would be the plans that have changed are that Hangman was going to win the world championship, but because of people coming in, because of Punk, because of Daniel Bryan, we need to have Omega as the heel champion because we want to do Punk versus Omega. We want to do we want to do Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega. And Hangman maybe can win the championship later on, maybe at Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York in September. So maybe that's the plan. Maybe they're just looking at it saying, look, that New York show's even bigger than the All Out show in Chicago. Maybe that's the case as well. So certainly there are possibly reasons. We'll have to wait and see. But it certainly is surprising. And I don't know who does he face now? Who does he face off against now at All Out? I don't know. I don't have a good argument for that one. So time will only tell when it comes to what the new plans are for Hangman in AEW. A quick story talking about Brock Lesnar and AEW. There was a rumor floating around over the course of the last few days that Brock Lesnar had signed a deal with a company outside of WWE, and this led to a lot of speculation that the company was AEW, because we kind of heard a similar sort of thing when it comes to Punk and Daniel Bryan. With those signings, people went, Brock's next. But Dave Meltzer's appeared to put an end to those rumors in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, and as has the likes of Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast, claiming there's nothing to them at all right now. Meltzer has gone on to say that Tony Khan has never had a business discussion with Lesnar. Those close to Lesnar are stating that the rumors are 100% inaccurate. Meltzer claims that Lesnar has not signed a deal with anyone, be it WWE, UFC, Bellator, or anyone else, including AEW. He has also not been in negotiations with WWE right now, but there is still rumored interest in bringing him in for a WrestleMania match with Roman Reigns. So Brock isn't going to AEW as of right now. There's nothing been signed. I think what's interesting about this story is actually this shows you the truth of the CM Punk and Daniel Bryan stories, because if CM Punk and Daniel Bryan going to AEW was false and not accurate, you'd have stories like this come out straight away. You'd have Dave Meltzer, you'd have Andrew Zarian, you'd have Sean Ross Sapp, you'd have Mike Johnson. You'd have all of these guys come out straight away and go, nope, 100% false, not happening. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened with CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, which tells you everything you really need to know about those signings, that they are happening. At this point, it's pretty much confirmed, right? An interesting note about AEW's new Code of Conduct for fans. AEW has updated their Code of Conduct for fans attending their shows. The promotion unveiled the new code prior to the tapings of Dark Elevation, Dark, and Dynamite this week. Fans found being unbecoming of the code with the following. The code includes behavior that is unruly, disruptive, threatening, or illegal in nature, including fighting and physical harassment, foul, harassing, or abusive language towards other fans or staff, unreasonably obstructing the view of other patrons and standing in aisles, smoking, which includes e-cigarettes, abuse of drugs and alcohol. Now, this isn't the first time that AEW has unveiled a code of conduct for fans, having done so back in March of 2020 for a Dynamite taping in Broomfield, Colorado, soon after AEW was forced off the road due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So, this updated code comes 3 weeks after an incident, of course, at the Dynamite tapings in Miami at the beginning of July, that Road Rager event, when a fan attempted to reach into the ring to attack MJF. The fan said that his actions were done in honor of Jim Cornette, of course, who was a vocal critic of AEW. Cornette later distanced himself from this, saying that it was an idiot, and he is an idiot, all that kind of stuff. Some could say as well it might be influenced by GCW Homecoming, when all the fans threw garbage and trash at Matt Cardona after he won the GCW World Championship. AEW doesn't want that to catch on, which it certainly could catch on. I don't know, but this isn't really anything new, and AEW, of course, reserves the right to do whatever they want with stuff like that. So, interesting, though, nevertheless. Finally, Kurt Angle has revealed that AEW actually made him an offer for one final run after his WWE retirement. Now, Angle recently spoke with Fightful Select, which of course is their Patreon service, for an upcoming interview and noted that he had a direct offer from AEW. Now, Angle has said in the past he wouldn't go back to in-ring action and has specifically said that he wouldn't work for AEW, claiming that NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal actually tried to get him to join the company. Now, regarding the AEW deal, Angle noted that the company offered him, quote, a run after his retirement from in-ring action with WWE. He said he was flattered by the offer, but was not considering it because he's too beat up physically to compete at the levels he once did. So, this was kind of rumored before. I think Angle has actually spoken about it before. I think the reason AEW did this, I know critics of AEW will look at it and say, see, AEW trying to sign all of these ex-WWE guys and all that kind of stuff. I think the main reason why AEW did this is because they're probably, not now, but certainly post Kurt Angle retirement initially, there probably was a desire from a lot of pro wrestling fans to see Angle get the retirement he deserved. Angle spoke that he wasn't happy with his WWE retirement. He wasn't happy with his last WWE run. He didn't want to wrestle Baron Corbin at WrestleMania in his retirement match that lasted about 4 minutes. He wanted to wrestle John Cena. He wanted to have a World Championship run. He wanted to have the Goldberg run. Like he said, he wanted to be like Goldberg. World title maybe once, wrestle 5 matches that he could do in his first year there, and then maybe transition into a General Manager Hall of Fame deal. But they did it backwards. And a lot of people, including Kurt Angle, felt not disrespected, but just disappointed. It didn't end the way that it should have for Kurt Angle and his professional wrestling career. And I think AEW looked at that and maybe said to Angle, look, it didn't end the way that it should have for you in WWE. I know you got your retirement. I know you got the Hall of Fame and all that kind of stuff, but it could have been better. It wasn't fitting to your legacy. Maybe come in, do 3 matches or do 4 matches over the course of a year or something, and we can retire you the right way, because there is a desire to see that. But Angle, he was beat up physically when it came to the end of his WWE run, let alone now or whenever this offer was. So I'm probably kind of glad he didn't do it. I don't think there's any desire to see Kurt Angle back inside of a pro wrestling ring. So that is what it is, but it's certainly interesting nevertheless. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.